It's about what gets you out of bed in the morning. Why are you here? Like, what is it that makes you want to do things and inspires you in life? And that might be that you feel a very strong spiritual connection that's related to religion or not. It might be all about your family. It might be all about feeling that your mission in life is to help others. It could be all sorts of things, and it doesn't really matter what it is. The point is understanding what it is. And once you do, it's amazing what that enables you to do.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mutita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. 1. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. How do you manage your energy? Do you think your energy balance is important for you? Well, like today we're gonna talk about how do you really manage your energy, life management really on day-to-day basis. Because our guest today, Mary Guerdoux, I'm trying to say her last name correctly though. I'm trying my best. I apologize in advance. Founder of Resonance, she will bring her 20 years experience as an engineer and also senior leaders, where she has developed this deep understanding about resilience and energy management, and also personal transformation to help other people develop their self-leadership and thrive for both professional and personal life in their own way. So further ado, please welcome Mary to Get Unstuck Podcast today. Hi, Mary. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think we didn't talk enough about energy management. Like, people usually talk about energy outside, right? Spiritually, like how do you make calm to yourself, like morning routine, but really though, how do you make peace to yourself, like manage self-management? So definitely we're gonna deep dive into that. But before we get there though, how this thing came into your interest? How did you started this entrepreneurial journey though, Mary?
Okay, well, yes, good question and quite a long answer probably, but I will try not to talk for too long. So I think it really began maybe for quite a lot of people. Actually, COVID was the, I guess not the beginning, but the being locked down gave that opportunity for just stopping and rethinking. So what happened was that I became a stepmom a couple of years before. So that was already a big change for me. And then I became a mum as well. And so my life just changed completely. So I'd always been very focused on my career, always also had a lot going on outside of work, and becoming a stepmom and a mum. So that's 4 kids. So 0 to 4 is already quite a lot. I mean, it changed so much about, my life, the dynamics. And I had this just feeling in the back of my mind always, something isn't really right. And it was easy to say, oh yeah, well, it's because, I'm not getting a full night's sleep. I haven't done for ages because I have a young child. There were all sorts of explanations, but there was this nagging feeling that there was something more. And I just didn't have time. I mean, we keep talking about time and time management. I didn't have time to stop and think about it. And COVID kind of forced that situation. Thank goodness. I mean, that was, for me at least, one of the upsides of that situation. So I started really digging into, okay, it must be about my job. What could I do differently? What do I want to change? And I read this book called Be a Free Range Human by Marianne Cantwell that was all about finding your passion, living your passion, not trying to squeeze yourself into a role in an organization that doesn't suit you. And it was just shouting at me, this book. It's like, yes, okay, this is me. And so I got into the book, tried lots of exercises, and I began having this idea, maybe I want to create my own business, maybe it's around coaching. And then it was just seemed too big and too difficult to actually kind of take that idea further. So I decided to work with a coach, which was already a new thing for me. And I did think, well, I have an opportunity right now. Being locked down with all the things that went with it, professionally, things were a bit quieter. So it gave me that bit of space. And I was like, now I'm in it. Let's see it through to the end. So I worked with a coach. And yes, it turned into a whole exploration internally, which I wasn't expecting. And then, of course, we also then talked a lot about my different career ideas. And I found out so much about myself. And yeah, it took me on this journey of saying, okay, what I want to do actually is be an entrepreneur. I want to manage my own time. I want to decide how I organize what I do. I want to have the kind of time that I want with my daughter. So she was just 2 at the time. And that set me off on that journey. So I then did coach training. And then it took 2 or 3 years before I actually kind of took the leap and went out on my own. But ever since that beginning moment of working with the coach, I've been building and building and building to get to this point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to go now and build this entrepreneur life for myself.
And since when you decided that energy is the thing that is what you want to focus as your niche or is interest?
So energy came up because at the beginning, because I felt like I had so little of it. So, I mean, like I said, I was always very focused on my career, but I've also always been very focused on sports, on being, I always considered myself to be this very high energy person, right? So I used to do Ironman. I've always trained very seriously for sports. So like energy is something that I've always kind of felt like I had a lot of. And here I was without any. And it was like, I don't get it. Okay, maybe I'm not getting enough sleep. Okay, maybe this. But I don't know, at work, I just don't have that same kind of vibrancy or energy that I had before. At home, I'm kind of irritable and grumpy. And then when I do the things that normally bring me energy, like go running or, well, they're kind of okay, but they're not lighting me up like they used to. So this was already something that I was feeling. And then I came across a book. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. I heard somebody talk about it, and it introduced this idea of if you really want to live your life fully, be fully engaged in everything you do, energy is where you need to look. And I was like, okay, well, already I like the word, but like, what do I need to do? And it started talking about this idea of having 4 energy sources. So emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental. And really looking at your life, professionally and personally, through the lens of what do I need to do to boost these kinds of energy in my life and what actually takes my energy away. And it just really spoke to me. And then when I was looking to train as a coach, when I started looking around for coaching schools, I found one that talked about energy being the basis of the way they coached. And I was like, okay, this is I'm on a track here. This is working for me. This whole idea of looking at life through this idea of energy just really, really speaks to me. And so I then did a coach training course with an organization called IPEC. And their whole approach is all about this idea of energy and core energy dynamics. And it just, it works so well for me. And so that's what I decided to focus on in the way that I coach as well.
So what does energy means to you then?
So when I get this question, a lot of people are either on a very, I don't really like the word, but like a woo-woo end of the scale. And then there's people that are very on a kind of science end of the scale. And coming from engineering, I mean, I've come from a very energy means something very specific when we talk about science and engineering. But for me, that to me, it makes complete sense. So it's about what drives you, what enables you to do all of the things that you want to do. And thinking about that purely in terms of something scientific, I think doesn't really answer completely the question. So for me, there is no difference. When I speak about spiritual energy, it's about what gets you out of bed in the morning. Why are you here? Like, what is it that makes you want to do things and inspires you in life? And that might be that you feel a very strong spiritual connection that's related to religion or not. It might be all about your family. It might be all about feeling that your mission in life is to help others. It could be all sorts of things. And it doesn't really matter what it is. The point is understanding what it is. And once you do, it's amazing what that enables you to do. Once I decided that I really wanted to be a coach, that my mission now was to help other people who were stuck like I was, my energy went through the roof. And like my life is still exactly the same. I still have the 4 kids, but not sleeping enough and all these other things. But really getting connected and really feeling that kind of, okay, but I see where I'm going. It just boosted my energy like nothing else. And then I also looked at the other areas, the other 3, and realized that the ways in which my physical energy worked now with a different lifestyle from I had before. It was different from how it was when I was younger, when my context was different. And it enabled me to just open all of that up and change the way I looked at things. So yeah, I don't know how well that answers your question, but energy for me is what drives us, it's what boosts us. But also there are things that take our energy from us. And once we start getting really tapped into what they are and how they work, there's this whole wealth of energy that's actually available that maybe we don't have if we haven't really explored how it works.
What about, you mentioned core dynamics. You also trademarked. Like, what is that actually means? Like, I think about dynamics, but like how it's come along together.
Yeah, so it's how all those four kind of actually fit together. So I talked about those four energy sources, but they interact as well. And understanding how that dynamic works is also really important. So like an easy one I find is your mental energy. So let's say I'm sitting in my office and I have some work to do that requires quite a lot of concentration and focus. Well, I can maintain that concentration and focus for, and this is something that can be measured, about an hour and a half before it starts to go off. And that's true of everybody, whatever we think. That's actually a physical reality of being human. But I can boost that mental energy by walking out of the door, going outside and taking a 10-minute walk. When I come back, I have more energy. My mental energy is back on track. And generally speaking, once I go outside, all the kind of creative part of my brain starts being activated, which it really isn't when I'm sat, for example, at my desk. So realizing that and saying, okay, well, if I want to have a productive day and maybe I have a lot of focused work I need to do, just sitting here and trying to focus all day long isn't going to work. But if I play with my physical energy, if I make the most of the environment around me, being outside can do all sorts of things. Just the things that you do with your eyes, looking at nature, that already starts a different process going. And there you go. I'm boosting my mental energy by looking at my physical energy and getting outside.
That sounds like a human hack or something.
Yeah, we can maybe call it that. But it's yes, I don't know that I'm saying anything that's necessarily that original, but I think we forget this stuff. You know, when you've got a lot to do, you just end up going, right, I need to sit here and just get it done. It does not work. And like, I know it doesn't work. I still do it sometimes. Those days when you just go, oh, can I really go? And I mean, for me, like running is a thing I do often. Can I really afford to go out for a run for half an hour because I've got all these things to do? And it's like, can I afford not to? Because if I don't, I know very well the ideas won't come, the concentration won't be there. I won't have had those sort of those other like hormone boosts that running will give me. I know all that's true, but sometimes, yeah. And I don't know how much is the way we're brought up, the way we're maybe taught to work at school, at work. We have this idea of no, working equals sitting here, just doing this thing. But it doesn't work. It works for periods of time. Then we have to renew our energy. And there's all sorts of ways we can do that. But if we don't do it, yeah, we're not as productive. We don't have the same ideas. We don't achieve the same things at all.
What about the way that we manage these energy dynamic? Okay, in case that we able to pick up our rhythm, what works, what doesn't work, how it help us to manage our time better?
Well, yeah. So first of all, it takes a little bit of experimentation. If it's not something that we've really tried before, there's a bit of, trying things and seeing what works. But I think the problem with focusing on time, so we can talk about managing time. So like time blocking, putting certain types of tasks together. There are books and people talk about this all of the time, but it only takes us really so far, because there's also the quality of the time that you have. It isn't because I've allocated 1 hour to sit here and, I don't know, work on an article that I want to write, but what will come out of that hour is a brilliant article. It might be, but if I've thought about this energy question, then I've just tripled the chances of actually producing something that's really worthwhile in that hour, instead of just spending an hour sitting here and not having produced very much. So I think quality is part of the answer to that question, really. It's like, it's one thing having time or allocating time, but how do I make that quality time so that it really delivers what it is that I want to get from that time?
To deliver what I wanted to get on that time.
Yeah, so it's like the example I gave. So when I was still sort of stuck a few years ago, like I said, like running is something that normally kind of boosts my energy. It takes some energy, but it boosts my energy. And like, it wasn't anymore. I'd be like, oh, I've got an hour free just for me. I'm going to go running. And I would come back and go, okay, but that was supposed to make me feel really good, and it didn't really. I mean, it was okay, but what I want to do is come back from that run going, oh, I've enjoyed, the time to myself, the endorphins, all those things. I feel good about having moved my body around, and it wasn't necessarily doing that for me. So yeah, I've made the time, but what I'm getting out of it isn't what I was trying to get out of it. So without having explored all these other things, I didn't understand why that was happening. And now I feel I have a much better understanding of why that happens.
So we need to talk to ourselves, since like we have to self-talk. How can we discover that? Like, do we need to, like, how to say that, make experience, or we need to do, like, how to say that, self-observation a lot by then? Because I know that, like, one day, at least for me, for example, I could be very lazy, and then the other week I could be like very energetic, like going out after like having a break, like you say, or sometimes that I'm really in the flow. I'm not gonna do anything because I'm like laser focused. Exactly what you explained. So I could relate on that. Like anyone calling me, I couldn't hear. So things change over days, or these are something that's very unstable, right? So people that is control freak would be having issue over this energy things for sure.
Yeah. But it's so I think you've just hit the nail on the head, really. The first thing is become just noticing, and we don't half of the time, or we sort of perhaps think we do, but we're so busy doing whatever we're doing that we don't. So yeah, the first thing, if someone really wanted to start looking at this, would be, and if it helps to keep like a journal of it, but start noting it down. So what happened today? And when did I feel fully energized? When I was completely demotivated? And start noting what was happening. And I think after a little while, you start to see quite clearly, oh, there's a pattern there. It's when I did this, or when I did that, or perhaps for the 3 days before I was doing something like this. So no wonder my, mental energy was actually quite low on that day. What I actually needed to do was something perhaps different, and that would have boosted me. But because I was back in, let's say, something that needed lots of focus, well, after the 3 days I had before, there was just no chance of me being able to do that. So I should have been doing something different then to boost that energy, and then I could have come back to it. But yeah, until we start kind of exploring it and noticing what's going on, it's very difficult for sure.
Oh, so food definitely involved, sleep definitely involved, environment. Oh my gosh.
There's so many things. So yeah, like, what are you eating when? What are you drinking and when? If you only had 2 hours sleep, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I function pretty badly on 2 hours sleep. So there's not much point after something like that trying to achieve a lot, for example, mentally on that day, or emotionally. I mean, if I haven't had enough sleep, I get angry quickly, I cry really quickly. I mean, it's no time for doing anything that's going to really demand a lot of emotional energy. So just, realizing that, A, give yourself a bit of a break, and B, you can plan kind of what you do so much more smartly once you become aware of all these things and how they're working.
Talking about planning things about that, if we are a business owner, okay, we have to making decisions, and these things are like pain in the ass to, like, it's kind of roller coaster somehow, even though we have a smartwatch to track this thing, or like finding a solution is not an easy way. And especially to manage the energy while we have to like control or making minor decision or major decision. So when normally you coach or consult your leadership clients, how would you like work with them?
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of things in there. So I mean, the thing is, well, especially working, well, whether we're working by ourselves or working for an organization, it would be lovely to have 100% control over our schedule. But of course, yeah, we don't really. There's, to a certain extent, we do. And so anything that we can plan, especially if we're talking about things like deeper work, where you really want to, write something, you've got a really complicated spreadsheet to go through, or these kind of things, typically you've got the sort of things that you schedule for a moment when you think you'll have that kind of energy and focus that you need. So thinking about when you plan those, I don't know, for example, not Friday afternoon after a really, really crazy week where you've been delivering. That's not when those things are really going to be optimum, probably. But yes, there are also a certain number of things. Perhaps there was only a certain time when you could have a meeting with a certain person or some other kind of where, okay, you just need to be available and present for that time. And it's maybe not something that you chose, but also seeing them coming. I mean, most of our appointments aren't made sort of 5 minutes before. We have a schedule, we've planned some of these things, looking at when they are, and then it can be small things, building in some time around it, building in some breathing space around it if it's in a period that's very, very busy. Actually looking at it from that point, rather than the kind of, what are all the things I can squeeze in? Thinking about it more, where can I create space? And where will I need some space to actually be able to really make the most of those moments and that time, is a much, much more effective way of organizing our time than that squeezing in. There's a client I'm working with at the moment who's she's a senior leader. She has a crazy schedule. And now that we've been working together for a while, she was like, oh, I do this new thing now. I no longer, when I see a gap in my schedule, I don't put anything in there anymore. I just leave it open. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I wait to see what I feel like doing. And I give myself the opportunity, if I want to just go out for a walk for 5 minutes, that's okay. Like that wasn't okay for her before, and that's now okay. Or if I realize actually that's actually quite a good time for me to, do some minor task, I'll do it. But I don't, fill it all in. I just wait and see. And I let myself explore what would be the best way for me to spend my time right now. And it sounds very simple, but it's been revolutionary for her. She was like, oh, the other day, I was working till very late because we were working with the US and there's a time difference. So I was finishing work very late. So instead of just starting work at the normal time the next day, I thought, I know, I'll get up and I'm going to go and have a coffee with a friend, a thing that she would normally never do on a work day, because A, that's going to boost my emotional energy, my spiritual energy. I'm going to enjoy that time. And when I come back, I'm not going to feel resentful that, my sort of spare time has all been eaten up with work. And I come back to work revitalized, boosted, and I have a much more effective day. And she said, I would never have done that before. So, yeah, it can be really transformational, even if, yes, it sort of sounds simple. It's not necessarily so easy to start putting into practice because we have a lot of barriers, I think, to doing that. It's like, oh, well, that's not how you're supposed to work, or that's not the way we've learned to do things. So kind of unlearning that and developing something new and creating this spaciousness, so powerful, so powerful.
It seems like it needs to be both developed in professional level and personal level at the same time. This is going to be both transformative. That's huge though.
Yeah.
Like seeing the calendar and then not putting it. That's very huge.
Isn't it? And yeah, it is. And also realizing that this idea of compartmentalizing kind of professional and personal, I mean, it doesn't work. I mean, I would say when I was younger, to some extent it seemed like it was possible. I mean, without kids, there weren't these kind of picking kids up from school, kids being sick, these other things that pop up, which means it doesn't matter what you planned. You're not going to be able to necessarily run your day like you thought it was going to be. And so, yes, this sort of interference, I would say, between the personal and the professional just gets sort of forced onto you. But then you also realize, I mean, why try to separate it so much? I mean, I'm not saying, walk into work and share all your personal, ups and downs with everybody that you meet, but we're human. We all have this stuff going on and it's going to affect our day. I remember when I was still working in corporate and my daughter was very young, between getting all the kids up in the morning, having breakfast, getting everybody dressed, driving to work, dropping everybody off. By the time I got to work, I was exhausted already. I hadn't even started my work day. And that was just the reality of my life at that time. And it felt like something I couldn't say at work. And I was like, well, this is, why not? I mean, this is the reality for me and most of the other parents who are here. So, just being able to share that, air it, and maybe also adjust your schedule a little bit to kind of make that a little bit easier. I mean, of course. I mean, why wouldn't we do that? But yeah, that was definitely for me something that I wasn't used to doing in the way that I kind of looked at work and personal life before.
And how, okay, since you mentioned that, I can feel your exhaustion already, but I mean, I can imagine that because I'm just thinking about my mom sending me to school back in the days. Like, that's exactly how I felt, even though I'm in the car. And how did you start your day with that? And also like going through it with a good management, and then picking them up after school and go home.
Yeah, picking up was also a long process. At the time, it meant picking up. So my daughter was she wasn't at school yet, so she was in a creche. So we would go there, pick her up. There'd always be a long conversation about what did she eat today? Well, there'd be a long discussion, and you would have to queue up with the other parents. So you're there going, guys, like, I really want to go now, but you're the third parent in line, so you wait. Driving back, you hit all the traffic, driving back again. And then we had the other kids to pick up. And as soon as you get home, shower, dinner, all this kind of stuff. And for me, that was always my most difficult part of the day, actually. So even if the morning was difficult, it was like, I've had a full day at work, I'm tired, and now I need to bring all this energy to all this stuff at home. And yeah, I found that really, really exhausting, honestly. And what's worked for me since, two different things. One is the fact that now I work for myself. I can manage that a little bit differently. I try to not have this. I mean, something I hate is when it's exactly the same every day. I have a day now when I maybe pick my daughter up a little bit later, another one a little bit earlier, to just at least not have it be exactly the same every time. But the other thing, I mean, the big thing for me was also about the expectations that we have for ourselves in the end. And now we're more on this emotional energy. I had this whole idea about when everyone needed to be in bed, like what everyone needed to be eating in the evening for it to be good enough, and so on and so on. And that pile of expectations was just so big that, I constantly felt like I wasn't really doing it well enough. And it creates so much extra pressure. So looking at that as well and saying, okay, there are some days when I'm going to do the full thing. We're going to eat the great meal. We're going to get everyone up. Okay. But not every day. And this day every week, I don't know, I'll unfreeze a pizza, we'll eat the pizza. I don't care if nobody had a shower, and I will just sort of change my expectations about that. But again, planning it a little bit. It's like I can put this energy in a certain number of times a week, but I can't do it every day. And seeing it that way, which is another whole process, especially as a parent, of kind of adjusting these rules and expectations that all kind of come to the surface when we become a parent, can be quite a tough process. But yes, doing that is really, really important, to just, give yourself a bit of a break and decide, when am I going to sort of go all in, and when am I just going to go for the easy option. And it helps so much. It helps so much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Setting the expectation and then let your energy flow around it. Oh, that's actually a very good perspective to look at it, though. So in case anyone want to work with you and follow your content, where can they find you then?
Okay, so the two main places. So the first would be my website. So my website is www.resonance.coach. So I chose resonance because I'm all about energy, and I like this idea of things resonating. And the other place is LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn too, where I talk about all sorts of different things. And on my website, so a good thing if you want to just explore a little bit more this idea about energy, I have a little energy profile on there, which is completely free. So you go on, answer a few different questions, and it will come up with a little report giving you an idea about those 4 energy sources, how they're working for you, the energy in the spiritual, emotional, physical, and I've forgotten one, in the 4 areas. So it pops up with a report.
Physical, emotional, spiritual.
And spiritual. Yes, I missed one out somewhere. So it just gives you a first little flavor of kind of what those are. And yes, and based on the questions, it already gives you a few ideas about what might be boosting and draining your energy, and which are perhaps areas to start exploring if you want to have a bit more energy, and maybe think about your time a little bit differently.
Yeah, so I will make sure that we have both links around here, as well as description and the show notes. So Mary, thank you so much for sharing this and give me a new perspective that we have no need to control everything and let things change a little bit. Maybe some surprise may give us a little bit boost on the day. So thank you so much for joining our podcast today, though.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great talking to you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey.
so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what we have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.